We begin the current Daf Mesechta Yevamos Daf Lamed Beis. We begin 4 lines down at the top of the Yomid. But the Gemara first is going to finish off the discussion from the previous Daf, and then again go back to this theme of these Mishnayos regarding the brothers married to two sisters, and so on and so forth regarding those halachas. Today's Daf. Some of these discussed in today's Daf, which are primarily on Lamed Beis, is ein nisachal lissa. When something's forbidden, it cannot take effect with another prohibition. It's already prohibited. Isser ma'isiv and isser kayla, which in a simplistic way, although it translates as the addition, that which is additional issa, that which is all inclusive, essentially isser ma'isiv is when more people become prohibited, and then isser kayla is when more objects become prohibited to the same person that was already prohibited. So begin the current daf. First, we're finishing off the discussion from the previous daf. This 4 lines down at the top of the Yomid. Amar Rabba, and this is going on the halacha of the Mishnah from the previous daf. He says, we had in the previous Mishnah, we had 3 brothers married to 3 unrelated women, and one of them died. The second one, the brother did a mimer, and then he died. So halacha is chaletz v'misyabemis, as we said, because it says Umeis echem mehen Yevamo Daf, that now essentially she's having zika from the first husband, whose zika was never fully relinquished. And then since the second brother did a mimer, there's zika from that. And when you have this halacha of this woman having zika from 2 husbands, from 2 of the brothers, that doesn't apply to the halacha of Yevama Yavei allow. Now, regarding that case, says Rabbi like this. Let's say Nasan, let's say the brother that made a mimer gave a get l'mamore. It's a little bit of a complex case, as I didn't want to finish it in the previous daf, although it really is a continuation of the theme of the previous daf. So let's say he gave a get for his mimer, not for the zika. What's important is he gave, like we said, there's 3 brothers. Brother number 1 died without any children. Brother number 2 goes and does the women are unrelated, so it's nothing to do with the whole thing as sisters. Brother number 2 does a mimer, and then he does without any children. So again, there's a zika from Shimon, there's a zika from Reuven, and then so the 3rd brother has to do chalitza nadibah. But what happens if, let's say, this Shimon that did the mimer, he gives a get for his mimer, but not for the zika, because there's a halacha that regarding the Yevama, you could also do a get for her also, which rabbinically also severs that somewhat tie. No, he only did it for the mimer, not for the zika, and then Shimon dies. Oh, says Rabba Hutra, the first wife, the wife of Reuven, meaning Shimon's first wife, she becomes permitted because meaning the tzarasa, that tzara of that woman that he did a mimer to, becomes permitted to do yibum to the 3rd brother to Levi. Why? Because the mimer that Shimon did, he removed. He gave a get for that mimer, and therefore they weren't co-wives. And now you're not going to come to say, which is what we explained from the previous stuff on the top of the summit, that 2 Yevamos coming from the same brother, you can do 1 chalitza, 1 yibum, because here they don't look like coming from one brother, because the mimer that he did, he removed. We saw that he gave a get to it. So therefore, his wife does not look like a tzara of this woman who has, meaning she doesn't look like a co-wife from her at all, as if you're doing yibum and chalitza which you can't do in one bias. No, it's obvious, it's 2 different batim. It's obvious that this first woman is from Reuven, and the second one is Shimon's wife. Regarding the woman that he gave mimer to herself, asura, for her it's forbidden for her to do yibum with. And Rashi explains, not because of lo yivna, that he makes her invalid on the remaining brothers, which is usually the case when you give a get to a Yevama. No, because he didn't give her a get for her zika, rather, because he gave it only to the mimer, and then he's removing the mimer. So really, she should really be back to square 1. Should be regular shemeres yavim. But the mechala for the balas get, she's going to be confused. Where if he gave the get for the mimer and for the zika, we're there for sure she's rejected because kivin shleiban the shula yivna. Once you started not building because you gave a get, you can't build it anymore. But get to the mimer, you're only removing the mimer, and the original zika remains. But since she's going to get confused with the case of a balas get, therefore that's why we say herself you cannot do even to, but the other wife of Shimon, his original wife, and yeah, you can do even with her, no problem. That's one version. There's those that say a different version. Amar Rabba says, "Nothing get l'mamachay." If Shimon gave a get to the mimer he did in the wife of Reuven, who trufeli, then even that original wife of Reuven, who Shimon did a mimer to, which he removed with the get, is permitted to Levi when Shimon dies. My time, what's the reason? My David was shakli. Whatever he did with her, he removed. And it's like as if he never did a mime in the first place, and therefore she could go ahead and do yibum to the third brother, to this Levi, because of the zika from the first brother. Now, as Rashi points out, specifically if he specified that the get he's giving to her is for the mime and not for the zika. But unspecified, halach would be, kivin shalaybon shub yivna would be going on all the brothers. It's obvious from the Gemara later of Mabez Mabez that he's saying it's for the mimer and not for the zika. Then it's going to be releasing it just from the mimer and going to put it back to the original state. But if he gave her a regular get, that would be for the zika too, and that would invalidate her from doing yibum. So those are two different versions of Rava regarding this halacha of our Mishnah in regards to when you have the added variable of this equation of him giving the get to the mimer. Is it only that the tzava, which is going to be permitted because it doesn't look like that, because the obvious that he gave a get to the mimer, or even herself, because whatever he did to her removed, then there's no halacha over here of a balas mimer as if it has a zika from two different brothers. With that, we begin with the next Mishnah. In this case, it's two brothers married to two sisters. Very simple case, Reuben and Shimon. And one Mesach, and one of them dies, we call them Reuben. And then, the case gets a little more interesting. Then the wife, as this left side of the picture shows, then the wife of Shimon, she dies. So now, really, technically, she's no longer Chaysishta. So he should be able to do yibum to his rachel. No, she's forbidden to him forever. However, since for one moment at the Nefilah when Reuben died, his wife was still alive. Right? They were going to a simcha that he was taking his sister-in-law, and there was an accident, and Reuben died at 12:02, and then at 12:07, then Leah died. For those few minutes, Rachel was forbidden to him. That's called Eshrach Shir Shleibanim, and it's not going to be mutter even after his wife dies. So the Gemara says Pshita. The Gemara says it's so obvious because Hashta. If now Umma Hasam, we had this already. If you recall on Daf Lamed 2 blot ago, regarding 3 brothers, where 2 of them are married to 2 sisters, and this Levi was married to an unrelated woman. And we said that if one of the ones who are married to the sister dies, and then the Levi, the one who's married to the unrelated woman, goes and does yibum to his wife, and then. It's a little bit of a complex case, but you follow along with Rashi, you'll see what we're talking about. And then the wife of the second one dies. And then Levi, who's the one married to the unrelated woman, he dies. So he's saying that original woman from Reuven was forbidden forever on Shimon because of Eshesach. Why? Since she was forbidden for one moment at the Nefilah Rishayna, because she was a Chaysishtay, even though in that first Nefilah, she wasn't totally rejected with her Zika. Because you see Levi married her, who she was up to Yibum. And still I say, meaning, in other words, you could say that at the time of the Nefilah, it was Yevamos Daf, at least for Levi. Even so, you consider it regarding at least the one who's married to the sister, the Shimon, as of Eshach Shish Levanim, to make it forbidden on her even after the death of her sister. So, if over the Dula Mitchai says the Gemara, Mahai Beis Lagami, she wasn't fully rejected from this family, because you see Levi can still do Yibum. Amit Loi, still you say that no, it's going to be forbidden forever, Asur Lames. So Hach over here, at the time of the Vila, they call Mitchai Mahai Beis Lagami, which is totally rejected from this family. Because there's only 2 brothers, and this meaning to say one brother of the one who died, who's married to the sister. And the moment that she fell in front of him, there's no Zigvim at all. Loi Kolshkin, this is not Kolshkin. What do I need to tell me the case of our Mishnah? It was a Kolshkin from the 2 Mishnahs ago, where there you even had, she wasn't totally rejected, because she was able to do it to the other brother. And as we see, it was only by Nefilah Shni that was saying, oh, you're already outside the first Nefilah, so what do you have to say our Mishnah about the Kolshkin? Says, well, you're right. The Tana, the Mishnah is over here. This Mishnah over here, Tana Bereisha, was really the first Mishnah that he taught. And the Mishnah of 3 brothers, which she was not totally rejected from the family. Actually, Chazia, originally the Tana saw it, lehetera, that it should be permitted. V'shayin actually said it's permitted. And that's why he didn't originally say it, and he left it over from saying that it's aser, because he actually held that it's actually going to be mutter. Because you're right, you're not Nesr Lavai Lamas. You were never Nesr Sha'achas. To one brother you were, but not to the other brother. And then subsequently, he held that no, it is going to be Asa. Because for him, for that Shimon, We don't say it was Yevami Amalel from the first Nafila. For him, at least, it was Aser. So he subsequently said, yes, also going to be Aser over there. Now, once it was dear to him, this case of that previous Mishnah on Daf Lamed, because it was a Chiddush, because it's not so pashut that it would be Aser. We said maybe should be Mutter. So Akdima, so he said it first. Now, but a Mishnah, the real first Mishnah, which is our Mishnah, which is really extra now, because once you already said the Mishnah on Daf Lamed, it's really unnecessary. But we don't remove it from its place, totally uprooted. But you're right, our Mishnah really is unnecessary. It's a kolshkin in the Mishnah of Daf Lamed. We weren't even fully rejected. Now, relating to the case of the Mishnah, so let's say exactly the case of the Mishnah, where the two brothers are married to two sisters. So as we showed, this Yevama, if let's say he would have relations with her when his wife was still alive, this Rachel and Leah. Shimon has relations with this Rachel. So then the halach is going to be he's liable for being his brother's wife, because the Torah exempts her from Yibum, and therefore she's like a Eshach Shesh Lebanim, because it's Achli Sishta, so therefore she's Esr Yeshach, and Misham Achli Sisha, then Rabbi Yesi, and there's going to be Isra Achli Sisha. She's the wife's sister, as long as the wife is still alive, and she's also Eshach Shesh Lebanim, meaning even when her husband died, there's still going to be Isra Yeshach, because there's no Het of Yibum because of Achli Sisha. And as long as his wife is still alive, you can have those two Isur. Shimon says, no, you're only going to be liable only for Eshazach, only for the Isur of being his brother's wife, and not for Achei Sisha, as the Gemara is going to explain later on. Says the Gemara, how can you say this? But by the time you learn the Brayso, Rabbi Shimon, the same Rabbi Shimon says, wait, which one is it? We have two conflicting Brayso Rabbi Shimon. One says only for Eshazach, and one says only for Achei Sisha. Which one is the one that you'd be liable for this Rachel? Are you liable for when Reuben dies, Eshasav, or is it Fachay Sisha? Which one is it? Says Gemara Kash, not difficult. It depends. Kan, the second Brisa was talking about Shanasa Chai. We call him the living one, meaning the one who's still living, the Yavam. He married his wife first, and then the dead brother, who's dead now, he married his wife second. So Rashi explains, what that means to say is that on this remaining brother, this Shimon, what was the first Isser he had on the Yevama? The first Isser he has, since he got married first, the first Isser was a Chaysisha, because he married before his brother who died. So if that's the case, that's the first Isser, and that's what the Isser can be. But the first Brisa was Shanasa Meis, that his dead brother married first, and then the remaining young brother married after that, which is the first Isser was Eshazach, because his brother was married first. Oh, so then the Isra Chaysisha cannot come ahead and take effect after, and because he holds a Nisach Halalisa. So therefore that's a very easy resolution to which one's going to be the one Isra, whichever one was first. Problem is, says Gemara Reb Shimon, Heicha do Nosa Meis, Ve'achkech Nosa Chai. The Gemara has an interesting question. So, if you're telling me that when you're saying when the dead brother married first, and then and then the living brother went ahead and got married, are you telling me that the Isra Chaysisha is not going to take effect? Because the first thing was the Isra Shazach. So then says the Gemara, Tisyab Yevumi. So actually you should be allowed to do Yibum. Why? Because now the brother's dying without any children. And you tell me the first Isra was Shazach, and the Isra Chaysisha cannot take effect. So it's no erva. So you should be allowed to do Yibum. Says the Gemara, no. It says Isra Chaysisha mitla tolav v'kali. The Isra, it's my sister, it's the wife's sister. So it's suspended in ear because it cannot take effect. There's nowhere to land. All the landing spaces are taken because the Isra is already here. Now, Ipaki Isra Shazach. If you're going to remove the Isra of the wife's brother by saying the Het of Yibum, Asa Isra Chaysisha b'chai. So then the Isra of the wife's sister is going to go ahead and take effect. And the whole reason why it didn't take effect was only because the Isra Shazach was in front of it. So therefore, since the Isra Chaysisha is prepared and ready to take effect, that's going to exempt her from Yibum, and therefore Hilchot Chlepaka. Therefore, actually, that's why the Isra Shazach is not removed, and you can be Chayv Shazach. So it's like a little bit like pushing its way over there, saying really the Isra Shazach would go away. But if it goes away, a Chaysisha is coming. It's one of these like word problems or whatever, and then so because of that, so a chaysisha is going to take a vexah. Ishach doesn't go away, so it's going to be for the isser of the ishach. But nothing more continues and says on the other mandama. For some Rabbi Yesi disagrees, and he says, as we quoted, that you can be chai for ishach and a chaysisha. Says the Gemara, it sounds like he holds isser chalalissa, that the isser first was ishach or whichever one, and then a chaysisha. It says the isser obviously is taking effect on another isser. Says the Gemara, I have a time in the Brisa that says, someone, let's say, violates a sin, that there's 2 death penalties for it. For example, let's say the woman that's his mother-in-law, who's also married to a man, which is his father-in-law, there's 2 isur. For chamaisai, for mother-in-law, even if she's not married, that's ishobita, is the punishment of streifa, death penalty of being burned. And ishas ish, for being a married woman, is kanik, is strangulation. So what's the halacha if someone has a relation with his mother-in-law? There's 2 isurim. There's eishes ish and there's also chamaisa. So it says the So the more severe death penalty, which is sreifa, for the fact that she's the mother-in-law, is the death penalty he's going to get. He says no, it depends. Interesting. He says nidin bezika harishayna. Now zika doesn't mean like in our context of mesechus Yevamos, means the first connection habalav that comes to him from this woman. That isser, that first one, is going to be the one that's going to get punishment. But what does Rabbi mean when he says that you're going to get judged by the first connection? So it depends. If she's his mother-in-law, and then she became a married woman, what does that mean? She was a widow. He's dating Shidduchim, says, sorry, the family, there's no father, he passed away many years ago. So he got married to his wife when his mother-in-law was a widow. And then she got married. A few years later, after she's married with all her kids, she goes and she gets married. So nidim b'chamaisa. So then he's going to get judged as mother-in-law. Let's say she was first married, like usually most mother-in-laws are first married and then they become a mother-in-law. So need meishes. So then the judgment is going to be as a married woman, even though that death penalty of chenek is lesser than that of chamaisa. But one thing is the
means he made 2 masim.
What?
It was 2 masim.
What was 2 masim?
What is it?
No. He had relations with his mother-in-law. Question is, was she first chamaisa then eishes ish or eishes then chamaisa?
He had it. We want to know what happened
in the past. But which one isser took effect first?
Both of them exist at the same time.
But if you're in this chalissa, which is the point of the Gemara's question, then there's only one isser. The question is which one came first? Was she first married then became a mother-in-law?
What would be if when he has a relation with chamaisa with the ish? Then you could say what comes first because they make a different mass. We could kill him only once.
No, this is the same woman.
Yes.
And the question is,
don't think we'll talk about one. There were 2 separate incidents. You can only kill him once. So which one do you kill him? The mitzvah or not? You could say
no. That would be obvious. You would give him the more severe because he's high for both.
Severe, maybe the first one.
No, because he has both chiyuvim. Now that's in the gavra. Here it's in the chefza. In the person, he had both liabilities. They just can't come to the lab. They were just going to give them more severe.
He also had both chiyuvim.
No, if you hold it in chalissa, the second issa does not take effect. She's not forbidden as chamaisa. Well, that's the point of the Gemara.
Not forbidden as chamaisa anymore?
No, not anymore, because she was first a married woman before she became a mother-in-law. That's the Gemara's point, as Rashi explains. Obviously, you see that Rabbi Yisi holds that the more stringent of punishment of mother-in-law does not take effect because she was already forbidden to everyone in the world because of a married woman. Because if both would take effect, then you should judge her as the more severe. That's exactly what the Gemara wants to prove. So that's difficult because you told me Rabbi Yisi holds in the case of that we were discussing in our Gemara that you're going to get both for achlis ishtay and for eishazach. That's dependent on Issachar Lissa. But Rabbi Yisi says clearly that ain't Issachar Lissa, because if it would take effect, then you would give him a severe punishment of Chamaisi. Why are you judging him only as Eishazish? Says the Gemara, to continue to Medbeis is not difficult. Because Amr Bavo says, yeah, right, although Rabbi Yisi holds ain't Issachar Lissa in the halacha of this Brisa, but Rabbi Yisi agrees in what's called an extensive Isser, which is like what we were discussing on our brisa, which the Isser will take effect. Because, for example, the Isser Eishes Ach is the Isser of Meisef. It is adding on. Because originally, when the Yavam married the sister, and the other sister was single, so she became forbidden as a chesed, and she was permitted to all the brothers. Then, when he married to one of them, they all became forbidden. Then he became when wait a second. The case is just this is the Gemara is just first explaining the concept of Issa Maisa. We're going to go through the cases, but first Rashi is explaining. Let's say the case we wanted to say we had this question. We had the question: which one is it? Is he hold Issachar or not? So something from the Brisa. Ain't Issachar. But we said in our first Brisa we said that he holds you can be chayfe Eishasach and Achis Ishchoy. Why? So we're saying because that's an Issa Maisa. So Rashi is explaining that case is because when the Yavam first marries the sister and the other sister is single. So we said the sister-in-law is forbidden because of Achis Ishtoy, and she's permitted to all the brothers. It has nothing to do with his brothers, it's just his sister-in-law. But all his brothers are permitted to marry the other women. Now, when the sister gets married to one of the brothers, then she becomes forbidden on all the brothers because of Eishasach. It's the brother's wife. So that, as Rashi explains, now that's called Issa Maisiv, because, as we'll shortly explain in a little more greater detail, Issa Maisiv is when you're making something forbidden on more people. Those are the important words. Now there's an Isra that's forbidden for her now on more of the brothers. So that's what's called Migui. Since it takes effect, the title of Eishes Ach on this woman, to the other brothers who she was originally permitted to them, now also that title is going to take effect also for the Yavam. That's the chiddush what you need in Issa Maisiv. Issa ain't Issachar Issa. You're already forbidden as a Chais Ishtoi. How can you add on Eishes Ach? Because Eishes Ach is really a case of Issa Maisiv. Why Issa Maisiv? Because this woman is being forbidden not only on him, but now on all the brothers because of Eishes Ach. Once Eishes Ach is taken back on the other brother, he's also one of the brothers. So he's also going to be forbidden in that. But regarding the last brisa that we brought, which we showed Rabbi C holds that a Nisachal Lisser, where let's say she was a married woman and then, like a regular, usual married woman, then she becomes his mother-in-law. Originally she was forbidden on everyone in the whole world because of Eishes Ish. Eishes is forbidden to everyone. So now when this guy marries our daughter, this Isser is not fit to be added on to other people with him, with other people, to say, oh, since take effect on them, it's going to take effect also on him, because it's not. That's not Issa Maisiv. That's not taking effect on anyone else. And when it's his mother-in-law, and then it becomes a married woman, Rashi says most definitely that is Issa Maisiv. Because originally it was forbidden only on him, and permitted on everyone. And then she got married, so that's Itoisiv, that becomes forbidden on everyone. And since it takes effect on them, it's going to take effect also on him. Now, Rabbi Yossi says Rashi, Nidin b'chamaisai. Why is he saying Nidin b'chamaisai? Isn't that a case of Issa Maisiv when she becomes a married woman? Says Rashi, because since you're talking about death, and you can't give him more than one death, so we're going to give him the more severe one. Because you're right, it is Maisiv, it is taking effect. She is Taka Asa as Chamais and Eishes, but we're going to give the first one because the second one is lesser. Now, but says Rashi, right, if he did a b'shoigig, he would be chayv two chatais because it would be in the tais of the Isser Eishes Ish. So, because that is a case of Isser Maisa. So that's what the Gemara is saying, that Rabbi Yossi agrees that when the second Isser adds the Isser on more people, we do say Isser Chal al Isser. So therefore, Chamaisa B'nasa Eishes Ish is an Isser Maisa. The only reason you need Mechamaisa because it's more Chomer. But in contrast, when we said Eishes Ish B'nasa Chamaisa, that you can get judged for Eishes Ish, that's because it's not an Isser Maisiv, because Chamaisa is not Isser Maisiv. It's not adding on to other people. So the Gemara continues and says, wait a second. Teinach, there was two cases, there was two halachas in our opening brisa that we spoke about. We said that there's Eishes Ach and Achis Ishtoi, and depends which one's first. So the Gemara is going through it. Teinach Heicha the Nasachai, we could understand where. If let's say the living brother, this is Shimon, if he got married first, so what's the first Isser you have on Rachel? The first Isser was that of Achis Isha. V'achakach nasa meis, and then Reuven got married after that. And therefore, then what happens then is that you have the Isser Eishes Ach that takes effect, as we explained, because now she's becoming forbidden not just to Shimon, she's becoming forbidden to all the other brothers. I could understand. Migdi Tais of Isser, since the Isser is being added on of this title of Eishes Ach, L'gabe Achim to the brothers, that's what Isser Meisiv is, as we explained. So he takes it as a L'gabe Day. I could understand. I can lie in that case. And you tell me Rabbi holding Michav both, because you told me Rabbi is minded by Isser Meisiv. Ella, but what the Gemara says I find difficult is Heichad and Asa Meis, the other case, where let's say the Reuven, he got married first. So what's the Isser on Shimon and all the other brothers first? Is the Isser Eishes Ach. V'achkech Nasa Chai. And then the living brother, what we call Shimon, he married the sister then afterwards. So, Ma Issa Maisavika. What type of Issa Maisav is there in that case? You're not adding her to be usher more on other people to say Migui. That's not Issa Maisav. So why over there is Rabbi going to say Chai for both? He didn't differentiate. He says, in this case of this sister-in-law, we Chai for both Eishes Ach and Achais Ishtay. Why? And this is not Issa Maisav. And says the Gemara B'chita, maybe you're going to say, oh, no, Migui, since when Shimon marries the sister, then since the Itzer, since Shimon now, pay attention, since Shimon now becomes forbidden, B'kulu Achvasa, with all the other sisters, because of Achais Ishtay, which, like we're showing over here, is this Salva and this Rivka, let's say, because up until now, they were permitted to him, meaning to the other sisters of this wife of this Rachel that his brother was married to. So maybe I'll say that it's become forbidden also that same shame, that same title on the first brother, on the Yevamos, meaning of this Rachel is going to become forbidden also, who was already, you're right, it was forbidden at Eishes Ach, but now that she married Leah, which now saw Rivka become forbidden, so that Rachel also, because that's also Isser Maisav, adding on other people. Says the Gemara, no, that's not an Isser Maisav, because on that first woman, the Yevamah herself, you're not adding on her any more Isser regarding other people. Rather, this is Isser Kailu. That's, you're including in the first one, another title of Achais Ishtay, since it took effect on her sister. As Rashi explains at this point, Isser Maisif is when the Isser is being added on to the piece to make it forbidden on more people that it was permitted up until this point. Isser Kail is when the Isser is taking effect on other pieces, meaning on more objects, and that's dragging it with them through the Migui. But that's not an Isser Maisif. That's an Isser Kail. We're including that this same thing that was already forbidden is going to have another prohibition because of other things that also have that prohibition. But this thing is not being forbidden on more things. That's not an Isser Maisif, that's an Isser Kail. Now, Taisa says, maybe BC holds an Isser Kail. What's the Gemara Shaila? Maybe not only is he Moed Isser Maisif, maybe also Isser Kail. Taisa goes through a discussion to show how, and then Taisa says it's difficult with that, but it seems like the Gemara understood that he does not hold an Isser Kail, only holds an Isser Maisif. And this is a case of Isser Kail. So we're back to the question. Where the mace married first, and then the Chai, there's not an Isser Maisif, it's only Isser Kail. So the Gemara actually says, you're right, because of this question, that Ela Amar Rava says that the truth is Rabbi Yossi does not hold Isser Chalal Isser like the last Brisa. We said in the opening Brisa of our discussion that you're going to be chayiv on her because of Eishes Ach and Achais Ishtay. So that's not when he does it by mistake to be chayiv to chatois. Rather, it's when he does it deliberately and he becomes a bona fide wicked person. You're right. Isser Chalal Isser really does not take effect on Rabbi Yossi. But I consider it as if he did two. But really only chayiv for one. And I look at it as if he did two, but really only chayiv one. Meaning, you're right, we're falling off. We're holding Rabbi Yossi holds ein Isser Chalal Isser like we showed by the second brisa regarding Eishes Ish and Chamaisa. So then, what does it mean that you chayiv for Eishes Ach and Achais Ishtay? It just means to say that we continue like a rush as if you did two. Says, what's halachic relevancy? You're not punishing him for the second issa. It's the cover ben neshama gemurim, which Machlekes Rashi says. Rashi says, meaning a wicked person is buried near other wicked people. Like the Mishnah teaches us on Sanez Menvav Menalef, that there were two different cemeteries that were Bezdin had for those that they killed. For the lesser Mrs. Bezdin that was killed by either the sword or that was choked, and there was another cemetery for those who were stoned and they were burned. So also, even though this person not from Mrs. Bezdin, but since he did, meaning he's B'chayv Karas, but not Mrs. Bezdin, but since he did two, we would bury him by those who were in the Skolim and the Srafim. To say that he's a bona fide, totally wicked person. Taisa disagrees with that. But that's the purpose, you're right. But really, Rabbi Yossi does not hold Isra Chal Lissa. So the Gemara falls over that. Now, regarding the halacha, as we'll see, the Gemara wants to say Ubaplukta. There's Rabbi Yossi holds Ein Isra Chal Lissa, with the exception of Isra Moisef, where we say Isra Chal Lissa. But we couldn't show for the previous brisa where you had a case of Isra Chal also. Rabbi Shimon holds ein Isra Chal Lissa even on the Issa Moisef. Tanakam holds Isra Chal Lissa even when it's not an Issa Moisef. It still always could take effect. So the Gemara wants to say now, there's actually Machlekes Amaram in the Isra Chal, according to Rabbi Yossi, if you're going to say the ultimate conclusion of this Beplukta is going to be actually on the next Daf and on the Beis. But the Gemara is going to introduce to show that Rabbi Chi is going to hold Rabbi Yossi holds Isra Chal, you would be Chayv too because Isra Chal Lissa. And by Kapara is going to hold Bisa was not going to have only one because ain't Isra Chal Lissa. So this halacha of Isra Chal that we're discussing, according to Rabbi Yossi, it's actually a machlekes Tanoim. What does Rabbi Yossi actually hold? And the Gemara discusses three cases in which we find this machlekes. But again, we're only going to clarify this on the next daf. Like we learned as follows: Zar shashimesh b'Shabbos. If a non-kohen does the avodah on Shabbos, what's the halacha? So he says that chayiv shtayim. There's two isurim that the person is doing. There's not that he gets a punishment of chatas, because Rashi explains that the isazar of a non-kohen doing avodah, there's no chatas, because if you do deliberately, it's misa b'dei shemayim, and the chayiv of chatas only if you did it by mistake, it'd be you only have a chatas if you did it by mistake if you'd be liable for karas. So it's not like liability, but it's regarding the prohibition. There's one for being a zar, there's one for chil Shabbos. Like we said, Chayv Shtam, Bakapoim, it says, in Chayv al-Achaz. No, only liable for one Isser, that of being a non-Kohen doing that later. So Kavach Rabbi ben Ishbaz, Rabbi jumped up and he swore that you're going to be Chayv one. Havaidi says, I swear by the service, Kach Shemati Merebi, this is what I heard from Rebbe, from Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Danasi, that you're Chayv for Shtam, you're Chayv for two. But Kapar ben Ishbaz, so Kapar jumped up and he swore, Havaidi, I swear by the service, Kach Shemati Merebi, I heard from Rebbe, the Achaz, that you're going to be liable only one. So Hesra B'chiyah L'Adon, B'chiyah started educating, he started handling and trying to prove his point. He says, look, Shabbos L'Kol Nesra. Shabbos is forbidden to everyone. No one's allowed to do any malach on Shabbos. K'shehot Mikdash, when it was permitted in the Beis Hamikdash to do avodah, it's L'Kan, which was only permitted by Kehanim. So L'Kan, which was Zarm, only become not for Zarm. So Yesh Kam Shum Zaz, which comes Shum Shabbos. So there's two problems over here. He's non-Kohen doing avodah, and there's also Chil Shabbos. Not a heter for such a person. His Rabbi Kabar started handling back. He says, no, Shabbos l'kol nasa. You're right. Shabbos is forbidden to everyone. Now, Kashotcha, when it was permitted in Mikdash, was permitted in the Beis Hamikdash, unspecified. So therefore, Inkarn Elazar. So as Chil Shabbos and doing the avodah, no, whoever is doing the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash is permitted. Only problem is not a kohen. So he only mechayev for being a zar and not for doing the Chil Shabbos. Which that's what we're going to see as the Gemara is going to explain on the next daf. That regarding this halacha, that it's Isser Kayil, because this person became Usser in additional things. It's not more people becoming forbidden on that same thing. So that's what we're going to show on the next daf, that Rebbe is saying Yechayev two, but Kabbalah is saying Yechayev only one, that this is the machlekes in Rebbe if you say Isser Kayil or not, because this is a case of Isser Kayil. It's not more people becoming forbidden in the same thing, it's that this thing that's forbidden is becoming forbidden for other things. Another case. These are all very similar, these three cases. Someone who has a blemish as a kohen, and he also did avodah in the state of tumah, which as Rashi points out, by carbon tzibur, which generally carbon tzibur does override tumah. So too the halacha of Zar Shemish b'Shabbos, they're really you're allowed to do the avodah on Shabbos. It's only because of his invalidation that invalidates him, and therefore that can make him liable for the second thing also. So here you can have a problem besides being a balmum, you're also going to have a problem of tumah, where the Torah prohibits from being nazir because when they saw the chalu and the yikuch of beis. So here we have the same machlekes. Rabbi Shloimy says chayv shtam, chayv for two. You're blemished and you're doing the avodah in the state of tumah. But Kabbalah says chayv lach is only chayv for one because of being a baal mum who's not doing the avodah. So again, coverage of Rabbi Shloimy jumped up and he swore avodah. I swear by the service kashemati b'Rabbi Shloimy. I heard from Rabbi that there's two liabilities, there's two isur. Comes back above and Kabbalah jumped up and he swore avodah. I swear by the service kashemati b'Rabbi Achaz. I heard that there's only one. And his Rabbi Shloimy started handling, and again, it's really the same type of discussion where it's essentially a Isser Kail and they're disagreeing regarding being Mechayv for both. B'chia says, look, Tumah l'kol Nesser. Tumah is forbidden to everyone. Now, Kashrut Mikdash, when there's permitted in the base of Mikdash to do a Korban Tzibah in the state of Tumah, it's a Kam Tamima, which was only permitted for unblemished Kahanim, which are fit to do that Vayda, where we learn it out from B'mayadoi, which tells us as Muslim Psachim the Vayim Zamanal, you do it in its designated time, even if it's on Shabbos, even in the state of Tumah. But Lakahanim Tamim, which is only permitted for Kahanim that would unblemished, not to blemish Kahanim. So the problem about being blemished in the Vayda was the problem about Tumah, because Tumah was never permitted for a blemished Kohen. His Kabbalah started discussing and explaining his opinion. Says no, Tumah l'kol Nesser. Tumah is forbidden for everyone. Because when there's permitted, there's permitted unspecified. So the only problem is being blemished, because the problem about the other Isser that was never forbidden for doing it in the state of Tumah. And the third case, again similar, is Zar Sha'ocha Malika. The non-Kohen ate from that which the Kohen did Malika on the bird, which is he takes the fingernail on the stomach and he makes a hole in the back of the neck. That's the type of slaughtering you do in the bird karbanis in the Beis Hamikdash. If a non-Kohen eats from it, Rabbi Shloimy says Chayav Shtam is liable for two. One is because he's a Zar, and also because of, meaning, and only a Kohen is supposed to eat from that, and also because of Nevela, because Malika is only the carbon that's eaten for the Kahanim. The Zar who eats it is violating the Zar lo yechel ki kodesh. As Raz points out, it's not because of Me'ilah, because whatever has what's permitted for Kahanim, there's no Me'ilah, but it would be a problem because of the Zar lo yechel boy. And also it's Nevela because it's only as a carbon that you're allowed to do like that, but for regular Yisrael, you have to do Shechita. Like Kabbalah, it says in Chayv al-Af is only liable for one, which is that of Kodshim, but not that of Nevela. Comes from Rabbi Nishma. Rabbi jumped up and he swore. He says, "Avodah by the service kachemati b'Rebbe Shloimy." I heard from Rabbi that it's liable for two. Comes back up and Nishma back up and jumped up and he swore, "Avodah kachemati b'Rebbe Achaz." I heard there's only one. So that's Rabbi Shloimy. Rabbi started saying about his opinion. He says, "Nevela kol Nesser." Look, Nevela is forbidden to everyone. Because Rosh makes it permitted in Beis Hamikdash. The Kamot only permitted for Kahanim by the Chatas Saif, by the bird Chatas. The Kamot only permitted for Kahanim, not for non-Kahanim. Yes, so Yesh Kamashum Zaz, Yesh Kamashum Malika. There's a problem about being a non-Kohen and about that with Malika, that's Nevela. His Kabbalah started being done and says, no, Nevela Kol Nesser, it's forbidden for everyone, but Kishur to make the Shur, when permitted, Beis Hamikdash is permitted, and Kana Mashum Zaras, so there's only a problem about being a non-Kohen. So there's these three cases that they disagree regarding, which are all essentially the same thing as we're going to prove as really the next line of the Gemara, which we're going to discuss in the next stop, but we could just say it. But my committee, what are they disagreeing about? Is Isser Koil L'Lider B'Yesi, which we're going to explain already on the next stop what it is. But each one of these are already forbidden, and then it just becomes forbidden on the person with another Isser. Again, that's Isser Koil. Isser Meisav is adding more people onto this which is already forbidden. Isser Koil is not adding on to more people. The same thing that's already forbidden to him is going to have more Isurim. That's essentially all these three cases, and that's machlokes we have between Rabbi and Bar Kapara. So we see that this idea that we were struggling with Rabbi Yesi, that we said, that's not Isser Meisav, it's Isser Koil, so we fell over and said the B'Shat. So I think more that's actually machlokes Tanoim if Rabbi Yesi holds that Isser Koil is going to take effect, or it's not going to take effect. I'm going to have one. Thank you to any time.